Hello everyone, welcome to ScorchedEarthToys@AnyMoon.com's video review of Yamato and Arcadia's 1/60 scale VF4G toys. Yamato released the first version of this toy back in December 2012 for an MSRP of approximately 27,000 yen, including tax. This was a Yamato website exclusive. They'd announced the pre-orders beforehand, and if you pre-ordered before they'd figured out what they were going to charge, they even gave you a 5% discount. After Yamato's demise, Arcadia did a reissue in February 2016 for the same price. Inside the box, you get a pilot figure, instructions, sticker sheet, 2 sets of stand attachments, and 2 articulated hands. For those of you familiar with the Yamato VF4, just watching this review to see if Arcadia changed anything, the answer is no. Colors are exactly the same, functionality is exactly the same, missiles still pop off way too frequently. I'll pit the toys next to each other as we go through each mode, but there are no real differences unless Yamato put their name on there somewhere, which I haven't been able to find. So that is it. They are exactly the same toy. It is just a plain and simple reissue with a slightly fancier box. Here is fighter mode, and it is very attractive. Some nice tampo printing, some good colors, nice booster nozzle inset color, clear plastic bit on the back. Very attractive all over. Maybe not the paint scheme you love, but well done. You can see missiles falling off already. Yeah, it's really that bad. It's very annoying. What you could do, obviously, to fix that is just a little bead of glue around the top when the toy doesn't have these missiles attached, just to thicken up those pegs a little bit, and that really ought to solve your problem. It was so problematic for Yamato that they ended up saying that you should take off all the missiles when transforming the toy just so you don't risk losing any. When handling the toy, you're going to get your fins kind of out of whack, so you're going to want to take a second to make sure you got them all back into the position you want. The toy does have an opening canopy. You just pull upward and then open. And inside there is a pilot figure that you will not recognize. Again, this is a VFX toy, VFX license, so not a Do You Remember Love toy. So nicely detailed, but again, no one you know or care about. Inside the canopy, sort of a forest green gray, if that is a color, but you know, just decent detail work inside there. Let's take a look at the landing gears. So Yamato did a great job getting these landing gear bays to be really flush, but the downside of that is it makes opening the landing gears very, very difficult. So what I highly recommend you do is have a toothpick handy. With a toothpick, you can then fish into this little area here that's meant for a fingernail, but is just tiny, and then pop it open that way. Now, this is my Yamato version, and you can see I have tried to use my fingernail many times, and it's actually worn away some of the nice white paint that's inside this landing gear door. So, here's another missile coming off. So I do not recommend using your nail. I say get something like a toothpick. Make your life easier so you're not scratching so hard. Once you open that front door, which pulls upward and then opens, and on a very new toy that is very stiff, and that is going to be a very scary experience for you. Be patient, don't apply too much pressure, and give yourself a stress mark and a gray hair. Go ahead and eventually it should open up like so. Once you do that, you'll see a little white bar at the top of the landing gear that you could push on. That will bring the landing gear up. You will also see that there's just a little hook at the bottom here that you can use with your fingernail if it's not out far enough to get that landing gear forward. It also locks forward in place and has a rubber wheel. So that's all pretty nice. Moving to the front landing gear door, you'll see once again, not a really good place to put a fingernail in there. So you're going to be a little challenged, but you might be able to pop it open like so. Once you start getting it though, you'll see the door runs into this conformal missile. So what you're going to want to do is pull up like so, and then that gives you the clearance you need to open the bay door. You can then put a finger in, just pop open that front, and then fish out the actual landing gear. This one will not lock into place, but it does have the rubber wheels Once you're done, you're going to go ahead and put the toy down. You'll notice to get the clearance needed, you'll probably have to bring these tail fins out. And then you can go ahead, put it down. It's going to be a little heavy towards the rear, but when it's on all the landing gears, it should sit nicely. One other cool gimmick with fighter mode is that there's actually an intake turbine detail cover. So to remove that cover, though, you have to be a little more invasive than you are with your normal VF toys. So what you're going to do is open up the trap door underneath, which may not be the easiest thing, but fish a fingernail in there and get those doors open. Then what you're going to want to do is just pull out a little bit on that bottom piece and then bring that leg free. You can then reach a finger inside. This just fits inside a sleeve within. Pull it off, bring it back up. You want to bring it so the outside is angled in, and then bring your inside in after that, and that'll keep the wing properly in place. And you can just close those bay doors back up. And now you have a VF4 with intake turbines showing. I've got to do a little clipping there. So there you go. Everything nice and tidy. Here we have Gerwalk mode, and as always I got a separate transformation video I highly encourage you to check out. We'll start by looking at the little fists that come on the toy. They are not articulated, and you might think they're a little bit small. They are replaceable with those articulated hands that came in the box, so we'll just go ahead and plug it in. Now, this is where you start to realize that you didn't see a gun in the box. There are no weapons that come with this toy. The missiles are all conformal. There are no hard points on the wings, and there is no gun for the toy to hold. Instead, the VF4 would just fire out of this cannon right here. So, those are things to be aware of. The arm's obviously pretty small. Both Yamato and Arcadia have had complaints about certain joints being loose, either the ankles or the arm joints, so those are things to watch out for. Speaking of loose, the pilot in the canopy, he looks good and everything, but he is loose in there, so as you handle the toy, he may rattle around. Flipping towards the back of the toy, I lost a missile there. There are these areas which look like some sort of engine or who knows what. Somebody does, I'm sure. Leave a comment, let me know. They have little doors that open and close, so you can adjust how open that is. As you handle the toy, these shoulder covers also might rattle back and forth on you. And then finally, there goes another missile. As I put these two toys right next to each other, you can see that in Gerwalk mode, the Yamato and Arcadia, indecipherable from each other without looking for a manufacturer mark somewhere. So there you have it. Let's continue on and take a look at Battroid. Here is Battroid mode, and as I mentioned earlier, still indecipherable which is the Yamato or Arcadia. Never found a manufacturer mark. So, really, identical toys that seem to function identically. There's no improvements for Arcadia. The big complaint with the Arcadia has been that the ankles are looser. And if your ankles are looser, obviously that's going to cause some problems in Battroid mode in particular, where there is a good deal of weight hanging off the back of the toy. So, you can see. That's going to fall over, so you'd have to be very careful about which poses you chose to do to make sure that you got that weight a little bit forward on the stance. Let's take a look at articulation, which overall is a little bit lackluster. A little spoiler alert there. The toy, I think, looks good in Battroid mode, but it's not really a lot of fun to play with. We'll start at the top. The head goes left and right. You got to watch out for those fins behind it because it has such a big cone. And it obviously goes up and down as well. It's not a ball joint. You can't cock it left or right. Moving to the shoulders, you could see the shoulder mechanism inside. There's a little metal bar that during transformation, the shoulder comes down on that metal bar and can twist at that metal bar up there. You can see. during handling, you are definitely going to lose these missiles. And those missiles also, during handling, would be bumping up against all of these different housings. So there's a shoulder inside. You can bring that shoulder all the way forward, and you're going to run into your little shoulder cover. So you can bring that up to get a little bit more extension. This is fully extended forward now. And you can see it's just getting to that chest hump. Now I've got the articulated hands on here. They do work well with the VF11 gun or a VF1 gun. So if you really did want to show it holding a gun, you absolutely could. This toy, as I mentioned in Gerwalk mode, or this vehicle, really wasn't meant to hold a gun. Instead, it was meant to pivot at the elbow, which is very stiff on my toy here. You can see you can get just about 90 degrees. And then it would fire that cannon there. So this would be basically it in an action pose firing forward. The articulated hands are standard Yamato. These 3 fingers, trigger finger and thumb. Bring them into a pretty decent looking fist there. Going down the toy. Actually, let's turn the toy around. There are these boosters in the back that go left, right, and up just a little bit. This little flap here. And as I mentioned in Gerwalk, you have these little flaps here. So there's a little bit more articulation in the back. Then we get to the hips. There is no waist to speak of, but the hips are very good. So you can pivot way out. They are a ball joint, so you could rock them open or rock them closed. So that's good. You can come way up. And you can come, unlike most Valkyrie toys, there's nothing in the back, so you can come way back. No wings getting in the way there. Then you have your knee joint, which is an incredible knee joint. No hindering there. And you can come way forward, and you can even extend it further to do more. So that's all very good stuff there. And then moving down the toy, you can rock the feet back and forth. You can come forward at the top here and back. And so it's just not a whole lot of give there. There we go. Looks better with that one. There you go. So there's the foot moving. Obviously this one not quite as stiff as the other one. So articulation wise, you can even kind of pivot to the side at the knee there. That's neat. There's not a whole lot of mobility in the arms, which is going to... look, there is a twist point I don't think I mentioned here. So the lack of mobility, the kind of being stuck behind the chest, makes playing with the toy a lot less fun than you would hope. But you can come up with some pretty decent poses, particularly with the lower body. I mentioned before that the VF4 plays well with the guns of other toys, and here you can see mine with the VF1 gun. The Yamato V2 VF1 is about 21 centimeters tall. The VF4 toy, it's kind of hard to get a precise judgment because it varies a lot on how much you angle the chest. But it's somewhere about 24 centimeters at the head to as high as 26 centimeters, depending on how you got everything angled. So a little bit bigger, but not as large as some of the other vehicles out there. In fighter mode, it's 29 centimeters long. Overall, I'm a fan of the VF4, so I'm happy to have a premium toy and was glad to be able to purchase one, and thank Yamato for that. But if you're not a huge fan of the VF4, there's not a really compelling argument here. It's not the most fun to play with. The missiles pop off on you constantly. Articulation is lacking in Battroid mode. So, still a good toy, but not one you would need to seek out unless you're a VF4 fan. Thanks for viewing. Check out my full article on anymoon.com.